Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. On today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some analog, well, it has analog output audio equipment. It's an NEC compact disc player CD-10 digital, compact disc digital audio, linear skate disc loading mechanism. Now don't worry, this isn't going to be a normal mainstay of the channel. I'm not really into audio equipment, and the 80s stuff is kind of cool just because of the way it looks. This player is from, as far as I can tell, 1987. We'll see the sticker on the back. It's got all the wonderful 80s things going on. Operating status display, remote sensor. I don't have the remote, unfortunately. Auto space, intro, AB, repeat, open, close. There's a repeat LED, AB, different buttons here. There's a memory mode, play, track, minutes, and seconds. So it has a, over for the transport controls, play, pause, stop, clear, track back, forward. We also have fast forward and reverse, memory, and a time button, headphone jack with volume control for the headphone jack. Nice touch. Now, being this thing is from the 80s, it is pretty heavy. I bet you it's got a transformer inside and somewhat of a linear power supply happening and a relatively large analog board on the side. This does have a bit of a smell of cigarettes. So I don't know where this thing came from. I don't really know anything about this thing. I don't know if it works. It's in okay shape. I had to clean it up a little bit because it was really, really dirty and there was some tape residue, but there's evidence of some scratches on the top and lots of scuffs along the plastic edge because this front is just plastic. Some of the more expensive players in the 80s, this was metal, the surround for the buttons and stuff like that. On the bottom of the machine, we have the 4 feet. They're intact. They don't even have rubber on them. They're just plastic though. So this thing would slide around a little bit on the desk. Hopefully this is coming across in the camera pretty well. I've adjusted the exposure up 1 stop. Usually when things are all black like this and there's lots of bright stuff around, it can kind of make the thing look a little darker than it actually is. Let's see what's going on the side. Nothing. It does have the original fasteners. That's, I guess, a good sign. On this side, original fasteners, a bit of a scratch. Cabinet material, vinyl on metal cover. I love how in the 80s they put things like this, like simulated wood grain. That's so funny. All right, and on the back of the player, we have the analog audio output. There is no digital output, I don't think, in 1987, which is the date right here. That was particularly common. Everything has a bit of a glaze to it, which is obviously from the cigarette smoke. Yep, just touching it. My fingers smell like that now. NEC compact disc player, model CD-10, as we knew, 15 watts. And I don't know, made in Japan, all the usual stuff. So one of the reasons why I got this player, which I have no idea about the condition, it may not work, it might not be fixable, but I'm hoping, being it's from the 80s, should be pretty sturdy and well built, and the only thing that might be wrong with it is maybe bad belts, is I was using this CD player as my main CD player. This is obviously a piece of junk. Kobe 60-second anti-skip. I mean, this thing is so junky, but it does work. So I had this upstairs in the living room, just plugged in through the headphone jack to a little amplifier to a set of really good 80s Klipsch speakers as well. And I figured it was probably time to stop using something as crappy as this and at least just get a CD player that looks a bit more period correct for my aesthetic. I like the whole 80s thing going on, and yeah, this player fits the bill. All right, so I'm just going to crack this open and we're just going to take a look inside and see what this looks like. I'll be very curious. I have a feeling there's probably no pictures of this thing on the internet whatsoever because I don't think NEC was a very popular brand. I mean, it's made in Japan. It probably uses Sony parts. I wouldn't be surprised. But NEC did have a consumer electronics division. I don't really know if they ever made other things. I mean, I know they made CD-ROM drives and CD changers. I didn't really know about a consumer level audio equipment like this, and I have no idea if NEC ever made, say, amplifiers, cassette decks, that kind of stuff. Maybe they just really stuck to CD players since that was what they were doing already with the computer stuff, and this was just an evolution of that. If you happen to know more about NEC and consumer electronics back in the 80s, let me know. But yeah, like I said, computer monitors, business related stuff, sure. But home stereo stuff, I don't recall ever seeing it. It does have a fastener on the back besides the 4 that are on the sides. All right, there we go. That just comes off pretty easily. And you know what? I can spend some more time cleaning, getting the gunk out of this, this little crevice here. On the inside, yep, we got this. I just made all these marks. I don't think anyone's ever been inside of this thing. So this thing's obviously had a good amount of use. But yep, there's a little bit of kind of plastic rubber here to keep this thing from banging around. I don't know, seems well made, at least the cover does. All right, well, there is our CD player, and well, there's actually a CD in there. What is this CD? Looks like it's Technotronic Pump Up the Jam. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that. I'll switch to the other camera so we can take a look. But this thing looks really clean inside. I don't immediately see anything that's damaged, but I do see that hygroscopic glue that damages things. Let me switch to the other camera. All right, so let's get a lay of the land. First off, there is that glue that turns hygroscopic and then starts to corrode things. It's really only a problem if it's sort of laying on top of some of the leads. Let's zoom in a little bit here and see if it's touching stuff. Yep, see there's a diode right there. It's gonna start to corrode the leg and it will eventually cause that to fail. And you see how it gets dark over on the sides here? And on this IC as well, it's sitting there. Well, that's where it really starts to cause a problem. So ultimately, I need to try to clean that mess up. And there's a transistor back there as well that is at risk, and another diode down here as well. So yeah, you really have to try to scrape this stuff away. And let's see how hard that is gonna be. Let's start with this dark stuff. Yeah, that's pretty hard to get off. Usually when it turns dark, it's actually easier to break off. Oh yeah, see, that's kind of breaking away. Now the reason why they put this on here, it was to hold those capacitors in place. But you know, they didn't know at the time, I guess, that it was gonna cause damage to the electronics. Now the parts that are the yellow part are harder to get off, although they're kind of coming off as well. So ultimately, I'm probably gonna have to just spend some time scraping away at this. This can actually cause failures, like if this diode is open or broken or whatever, then of course that can cause the player not to work. But you know, there's a chance this thing still works. It's just borrowed time, so to speak. And you can kind of see as I dig into this part, it's still somewhat pliable. And that part's not dangerous. It's just dangerous when it's this darker color, because that means it started to absorb water already. And it's more of that, look at this right over here. At least it's kind of coming off in big chunks. So one way to help get this stuff off is just to remove these capacitors, and then I'll make it a lot easier to scrape that away. So I might do that if we have this player actually working, once we've sort of validated that nothing looks like it's completely destroyed. Yeah, this stuff all looks okay. Okay, nice. Now from a construction standpoint, let's take a look. Here is the transformer I talked about, and it also looks like they have the power switch back there. So when I push the front power switch, you see it moving. There's a rod that goes from the front of the player. It seems to be somewhat nicely made, which is not surprising at all. And of course, NEC did make semiconductors, so they're going to use as many of their own semiconductors as they could. So op amps, which is what's happening here. Not sure what IC that is. What else do we have going on? We have a Sanyo part, so this might have been for like optical transport. Is that the DAC? That's got to be the DAC. The PCM54HP BB. Is that Burr Brown? And we have a 1986 date code on there, 23rd week, and a 1987 date code for the player itself. Let's take a quick sidebar and take a look at the DAC that's in this player. So this is a PCM54HP from Burr Brown, made in Japan, $25 with $6 shipping, and that's from a seller here in the US. Let's take a look at the datasheet for this old school 16-bit DAC. I think Burr Brown is owned by TI, and I don't know if they make the PCM54 anymore, but they had a surface mount version that was the PCM55. It's designed for audio. Looks like the dynamic range of this chip is rated at 96 decibels, but it might be a little bit worse than that because it's something I'll talk about in a second. So the way these work is this is an old school resistor ladder and current switch DAC. So this is nothing fancy with oversampling and 1-bit noise shaping and whatever else came out later. Parallel data comes in, there's reference voltage, and then it's a 16-bit ladder resistor network inside, and out comes the analog audio. You can see the date on the datasheet, 1985. Looks like this player has a chip that came out in 1986, so very soon after the release of this. This is a full 16-bit DAC. The original CD player that came out in 1983 from Sony, that only had a 14-bit DAC, if I recall. Now, of course, since inside of this thing are a bunch of resistors that create the analog output, you're going to have gain errors and other errors due to like just slight variances in the resistors that are in there. We can get a little bit of an idea of the way this thing works. There are all the data inputs that go into the 16-bit resistor ladder network and switches, whatever that means. Notice there's only one output. It's monaural. This is not a stereo DAC, and there's only one of these chips in this player. To get stereo sound on a DAC like this, a sample hold amplifier or deglitcher is required at the output of the DA for both the left and right channels. So sequentially, left and right samples are fed into the DAC, and then the output goes to two switches, which routes that particular sampled audio via a control signal over to a sample and hold op amp. So the sample for the left channel gets switched to this op amp and then held, and then the switch goes back to ground, and the other switch goes into this position, and then the right sample makes its way to this op amp. And all the while, the left op amp just holds the voltage of the last sample until it gets switched back in. And we have a little bit of a timing diagram. There are these deglitch controls where there's a little bit of time between samples where the DAC is not outputting a perfectly stable signal. So I think the control signal that switches these switches in and out needs to take that into account. And that's all set up very meticulously to offer the best possible audio quality, or at least the best possible audio quality for, well, the price of this particular unit. It goes without saying that if you have two of these DACs, you don't need to have this whole switching setup. But on the other hand, I think you might need to, though, because in between each of the samples, even if you're just sending half the samples into one of the DACs, you still have these glitches that happen between the samples as it changes. So you still have to have one of these op amps with the whole sample and hold thing to ignore these glitches that happen in between the samples. The deglitching control signals are generated by the timing control logic. The fast setting time of the PCM 54/55 make it possible to minimize the delay of the right and left channels to approximately 4.5 microseconds, which reduces the phase error at high audio frequencies. Needless to say, from my understanding, these types of DACs were very expensive and very hard to make because of very precise resistor ladders that had to be used inside of them. And all the stuff that came later with the oversampling and the 1-bit noise shaping really helped simplify and improve the quality of the output of CD players, or any digital audio device for that matter, which is why these types of DACs really fell out of favor pretty quickly. And in this day and age, I don't think any modern equipment uses these types of DACs anymore. Although it's not like I designed this stuff, so I don't really know. That's just from the best of my understanding. I'm thinking as well that we have surface mount components on the bottom side, because you see there's IC with no pins. Same here. Well, that might be optional because it has a dashed line, but this one doesn't. So I bet you there's a surface mount. We have lots of potentiometers. I don't have a service manual. Someone online is selling one for like 20 bucks, but I'm not going to touch any of that stuff unless this thing is not working. So TG, FG, sorry, trying to get the camera to stay focused. FB, whatever that is, EFB. I don't know, focus, balance, stuff like that. Tracking gain is probably TG. There's another one over here, VCO, voltage controlled oscillator. Ah, look, and more of that freaking gunk. Looks like it's on a disc capacitor and a resistor. Freaking rude. Over here, we have a few adjustable inductors. This is the output stage, I'm pretty sure, because it makes sense. There's the RCA outputs. Although, yeah, this is probably going to the headphone jack on the front. Yes, I think it is, because you can follow it to this little board, which would be the headphone jack. And what's interesting is these markings for CXA1081M, isn't CXA really always Sony chips? So I wonder if this thing could have Sony chips on it as well. How about that IC? Who makes that? SK, is that like an amplifier or something of some kind? We do have some test points. I love it. They have these little plastic standoffs, so it makes it easy to hook onto. And there's a nicely marked ground point there, so when you're doing your testing as well, very nice. We have another test point ground right there. Yeah, this thing looks awesome. There's a little bit of cigarette smoke smell on the inside, and I'm really just concerned. Oh, we have another test point there, SQCK, so some kind of a clock signal. I am a little concerned about this glue, but let's just see if this thing actually works, because maybe on its own it works. We have another test point right there as well. As for this transport, it's in the clamped position. This implies the fact that it's in the clamped position that I guess someone tried to eject the CD and they couldn't get it out. So this player may not work at all, or of course it might work and it just is simply a slipping belt. Let's plug it in and figure that out. Okay, it's plugged into the wall. Let me turn it on. Oh yeah. All right. It's playing. Track 1, and it's 3, 4, 5, 7, whatever seconds. It seems to be working fine. Let's skip a track. Oh, that's weird. You see these wires move? Look at that. Do you see that? The wires are moving. That seems odd to me. Like the transport is moving, the laser transport, and these wires are the connection, and they just drag across the bottom of the CD player. That's funny to me. That is very funny. I don't know. That doesn't seem the best when it comes to design. Track 8. Let's just go all the way to the top track. 12. It's playing. See the CD slowed way down. Let me mess with it a little bit. Yeah, it's okay. It starts up again, no issues. So the servo control for the spindle working okay. Let's hit stop. Okay, there we go. I'm going to hit the open close button. Oh yeah, there's a motor just spinning. And of course it did not eject. So I'm going to pull the power cord out of the wall. And I guess first order of business is we need to try to take this thing apart and see if I can get a new belt on here. Now I have an assortment of random belts. Hopefully one of those will work. Now I haven't really taken these things apart before, so I don't know exactly where to start. But I'm just going to start removing screws and hope I don't mess something up. A couple screws on the top here. Let's start with those. Oh, actually, I'm not sure that's the right place to start because this seems to move around. It's like it's all sprung on springs or something like that. Now, please forgive me about not knowing what I'm doing with this thing. Like, I thought there were fasteners on the bottom. Obviously, you have to get to those from the top. I really don't know anything about working on these things. And there's going to be people watching who probably do, and they'll be screaming like, oh, you're doing this wrong. I just don't know what I'm doing here. And I don't have the service documentation to follow. So I'm just going at this blind. I think the first thing I will do, though, is take out these fasteners for the front panel. Okay, so 3 fasteners on the bottom. There are 3 fasteners on the top. And I'm just noticing one thing that I like about this is, for instance, this audio cable for the headphone jack actually comes off the board. A lot of these electronics, the connectors are permanent, at least later, the ones I've worked on. I haven't worked on a lot of stuff from the 80s. Okay, so the panel is loose, and it does actually come off with the tray in the closed position. And there's a good amount of dust there, but none of the buttons are broken, which is excellent. That means I can give this thing a good wash. And well, there it is. It's grimy, but in pretty good shape, other than the scuffs and stuff on the top. But the front should clean right up, hopefully at least. And here it is, pretty normal looking micro switches, although they're kind of the tall variety, and I don't know why these ones have these little sticker things or whatever that is on them. I'll just leave those alone. I didn't really push many buttons except for like skip, track skip, and stop, and those worked. Vacuum fluorescent display, it seemed bright enough. Sorry, I didn't show it on camera because the wrong camera was in use. That blob of black color there is the getter, which is a little chemical thing they spray on the inside. This is under vacuum, and if any air does leak in, that absorbs the oxygen, the free oxygen, and that can cause this not to work very well. And yeah, that's pretty dirty just from use and the cigarette smoke, I suppose. Anyhow, here is our tray. I'm going to try to maybe help this open. So looking at this mechanism, you can see the springs that make up this whole thing. I'm kind of worried about taking these 2 off, but I think that might be the first thing I kind of got to do, because before this tray can slide out to give me access to the fasteners that hold the whole mechanism down, if I even need to take those out, I don't know if I do, well, this clamp mechanism has to go up. Or maybe this stays in position actually, but there's something on the bottom that has lifted the disc off of the tray. So that's why it's free spinning. It's up against this top mechanism. And actually, you know what's funny here is it seems that the disc is stuck to the clamp mechanism. Oh yeah, it was. All right, it shouldn't be stuck. There we go. So there's probably a little bit of a rubber gasket on there, and the rubber thing has become sticky. So that might contribute to this thing not opening and closing properly. Oh, the CD's pretty scratched up actually. So that could explain why it wasn't playing super well. So I'm kind of afraid to put this down because it's going to get stuck to the actual spindle. So I think the first thing I'm going to do while I keep holding this is I'm just going to take those fasteners off. And that's really because I don't want this thing touching the bottom spindle, which is the part that touches the CD, because I'm afraid that that gunk will transfer and just be more of a pain to clean. 1 fastener. Okay, there's the other part. This is what I was talking about, this thing here. And yeah, that is all sticky. So I'm gonna have to clean that off. I bet you for the belt that's not working, I bet you that turned to goo as well. Anyways, there the wires. Yeah, they just move around. That's awesome, I guess. Whatever. This part of the CD spindle is fine. It's not sticky at all. Let's see if the tray can open now that that sticky spindle, this thing has been removed. Because it might lift up this part here, and that's why it was just stuck. So I'm plugging the power back in, and let's see what happens here. Okay, and I'm gonna hit open. Oh yeah, look at that, totally works. So the problem there was, I think, if the belt, wherever it is, there it is right there, which I can access now, which is great, and it's not goo. I think it was just, this was stuck on the disc. That was the whole problem. Just looking around at this, there's a bit of dirt and stuff in here, but it looks to be in good shape. This is like a little carriage. This thing rides up onto these parts. There's a limit switch here. I won't push it because the CD player's on right now. Might need to clean that, but it seems to be working so far. Everything seemed to play without issue. Now, there's probably folks watching who might recognize what this laser assembly is, because definitely Sony laser assemblies seem to have issues with the diode dying or whatnot. And, who knows if this thing has that same problem. Does the camera pick up anything? I don't see anything. It's infrared typically. First order of business, let's get that belt out of there. Here's my little kit of belts, just stuff I've bought from various resellers over the years. I do have some that are pretty thick, not as thick as that, I don't think. I think these are like VCR type belts. So far, these ones here are the closest fit, I'd say. But let's keep looking. Okay, yeah, we have flat belts. It's obviously not one of those. Oh, wait, here we go. These are decent. I think these might be thicker. I bought a bunch of the same kits just because I knew that, I take one or two from one kit and then you're out of the good ones. Yeah, these are all thin. Yeah, I kind of went wild and just bought a whole bunch of sets. These aren't very good quality belts, meaning if you need something that has like good wow and flutter, like for a tape deck or something, these aren't great for that. But if we compare these two belts, for instance, I think the one I just picked is a bit too big, so we just dump out the whole thing actually, because this one that I took out of the player is obviously a little bit stretched. That's probably too small, so maybe like that one is good. Actually, they're pretty similar in size as well. Okay, I think that belt should be good enough. Feels decent, the amount of torque that's on there. I gave the little brass wheel there a little bit of a cleaning as well. I think that should be probably good. Let's plug the player back in. Just give it a run through, just to make sure it opens and closes. Yeah, okay, that looks good. Now, the issue, of course, is still this. So I need to try to figure out what to do with this. I think this should come off. Oh, it's a sticker, cool, okay. So that won't stick to the disc anymore, so that's a positive. For making something new to stick onto there, I'm going to use some of this gaffer tape. Hopefully this is good in that it won't, turn gross over the years. But if it does, no big deal. And because I could just replace it. And I'm using some of these, these scissors are designed for cutting through bandages. And they're not that easy to use. They're easier than regular scissors. But maybe I should stick this onto something and try to use an X-Acto blade, like something that this wouldn't stick to. But we're just gonna keep up with this and I'll see how this works. I think you just need a little bit of something that gives it a little friction. You don't need to have something that's actually sticky like this thing was. You just need a little bit of friction. I mean, to be honest, it might actually work fine with nothing on there, or just little pieces of tape might be enough as well. But just trying to replace it with something that would be kind of similar. I think this should do the trick. I stuck half on, but I still have that stupid tape I was using as a template on here on top of the gaffer tape. So now I have to peel that off because it's sticky, of course. There it comes. All right, well, I don't think this is going to work great because, I have edges on here I really need to trim off. I'm going to try to find a better X-Acto blade. This one is completely dull. It might be fine, it might not. I might need to have a better solution, like a very sharp blade, and like cut this out properly and peel it off, stick it on. I don't know. Let's see if this does the trick though. I notice there's a little wheel here that rides on this track. There was some grease there that isn't so hot anymore, so I'm gonna reapply grease to that. And I guess there was some there. So maybe, to these areas as well. I'm gonna clean those off first and then apply some silicone grease to it. I'm actually not sure that was grease. Might have just been the plastic wearing down over time. You can see that's pretty dirty. I can see there's a bunch of dirt right there too. This whole thing, it's quite dirty. So funny, I'm just noticing that someone was trying to literally pry this out with a screwdriver. That sucks. When they couldn't get their CD out, they're like, let's just use a screwdriver. So part of me wonders if I should consider myself lucky that this whole thing even works at all anymore. Oh yeah, look at this. This is on dampers, the whole thing here, and that's nice. That moves around nicely. Okay, I'm gonna clean these rails. I'm just using IPA. I don't know if these need to actually even be lubricated. A lot of times they don't, but just in case they do, I'm gonna use a drop of this very thin bearing oil. Just a tiny bit. And as that moves back and forth, it will take that in. I'm gonna stick a down here on the motor there for the eject mechanism. After going in and out a few times, that'll work its way down the shaft. Doesn't look like there's any kind of lubrication on any of these plastic gears, and I can see some under here for the CD mechanism, and those look unlubricated. All right, so with this just sitting on, I'm just gonna push down here. I wanna see if this can actually, oh no, the CD is not spinning properly. I don't know if that's a problem because of my tape that's on here. Oh yeah, look, that's messed up. Oh, I'm gonna have to peel this off. It was causing it to stick to this outside edge, so that was ineffective. How about, I'm gonna just cut little pieces. And what I'll do is I'll just put like 4 little pads on the corners. And that way there's something giving some friction between that plastic disc there, this gray thing, and the CD itself. All right, so something like that. It's not great, but that might work better than nothing. So where do these go? So these go there, into there, okay. Does that turn okay? Yeah, it turns freely. So I'm just gonna hold down on that. Turn on the CD player again. No. All right, so still having issues, but this could well be because this thing is not screwed in. So I'm gonna put these fasteners back on. So our little spring has a little peg there that it goes onto, and it goes on down there. There we go, and then this needs to be attached with these fasteners. When the fasteners are in, what it does is that spring levers against the little hinges that are under the screws, and it pushes this down with the right force, theoretically, to actually hold the CD down to the metal spindle. Might well be, though, that the tape that I put on there, especially the little tiny pieces, is just not enough. So let's open this, put the CD in. Oh, hey. That works, I think. Is it playing? It is. Well, it didn't start playing, but it read the table of contents. I hit play. There it is. It's actually playing. You know, I haven't even hooked any audio up to this, have I? I'm just going to put in a different CD just to make sure that this one also plays. Nice. Okay. Yeah, read the table of contents. No issues. Hit play. All right, let's plug in some speakers. I have my speakers plugged in. I'm going to have to just do this for a split second, if there is audio. Yes, it worked. Okay. Well, I'm just going to listen for a moment and hear how this thing sounds, just to make sure that it's working. And then we need to test CDR in here. And plus, there's plenty more to do. I got to clean up all that crappy glue that's in here, but I'm just going to see if this can play this NEC CD. All right, well, that seemed to be working perfectly. I have, let's see, I think in here, I have, what, Above and Beyond. This is a bit more of a modern CD. Let's try this one. I don't have a lot of CDs left anymore because I don't listen to them that much anymore. Yep, we read the table of contents and then came to a nice stop. We hit play. It's nice they labeled the buttons on the circuit board. All right, yeah, it's working pretty well. I'm talking, if I slow the thing down, it has issues, of course. But it recovers pretty quickly, so that's good. Okay, so it has fast forward and rewind, which is kind of cool. You can hear it seeking as well. I'm gonna go all the way to the very last track, 13. It's interesting. It sounds like there's like a little bit of noise in it, in the playback. Just little bits of digital noise. Yeah, I don't know about this player, actually. Easiest thing to do is compare it to this piece of junk player here. All right, with this CD player, yeah, I don't hear any noise. Okay, it's smooth. All right, so I've listened to that a whole bunch of times. Definitely sounds the same every time on this CD player. The CD is in pretty good shape. Was that little just a bit of dust on it. So we'll pop this disc back into here. Okay, now I'm listening to it over and over again. Yeah, there's just like slight digital noise. Whoops, I went to the wrong track. There's slight like kind of like noise in there that's not on this cheap Kobe player. And I don't think it's in this track either. So something's weird going on with this player. Also, I noticed while I was playing, this thing's kind of like wobbling a little bit here. This is interesting. So we have some issues here. I'm wondering if I should get the oscilloscope and hook it up to these test points and just see what we see. Ideally, you should use an analog scope for these eye patterns or whatever you get out of this thing. Okay, so I don't know, I started adjusting things when I probably shouldn't have, but I turned this voltage controlled oscillator control here. It's better not to touch these laser controls. And that seems to have fixed this problem. Turned it a little bit counterclockwise, and I'm not hearing any more of that digital noise. It felt like maybe it was like a buffer overrun or underrun that was happening ever so slightly. It's definitely better now. Yeah, that's definitely improved now. For sure, that weird little extra digital noise is gone. And sorry, this is so repetitive sounding, but it's just this perfectly smooth intro to the track 13 here on the CD is perfect for hearing that digital noise because it sticks out like a sore thumb. Okay, so I've been playing around with the CD, just playing music on it, and yeah, it sounds pretty good. I had to make a few more adjustments to the clock control and definitely turning that one way or the other beyond like the good range produces a bunch of these like noisy artifacts. So there's obviously kind of a buffering issue that's going on. As far as I'm aware, like the CD data gets streamed and fed into the DAC, and obviously there's some kind of a buffer that gets filled just to handle the slight variations in playback speed and whatever. And I guess that clock, as you speed it up or slow it down, it starts to underflow or overflow the buffer, and you get like little CD noise artifacts and stuff like that. You might notice that the top edge of the tray looks a little bit better, and I ended up just sticking a piece of the gaffer tape on it. I tried to clean off those scratches, but there was just really nothing I could do. And the person was really prying at it, especially on the top, but even on the sides. But the top, it's just kind of ugly when it opens up. And to be honest, the gaffer tape looks a lot nicer than those scratches, especially, well, you'll only see it when the tray is open, but that looks better now. Now, one other thing I also did is I started using this cloth here and just sort of cleaning stuff, and look at the nicotine glaze coming off. Ugh. Now, I did take the front panel upstairs and gave this a good wash under the sink. And obviously this thing has had a lot of use, so, you know, the play button is worn. I tried fixing that up. There's really nothing I could do. Now, there were a bunch of scratches on this plastic from when they were trying to pry it up, obviously, but I used some plastic polish, some of this stuff here, Plastic X. That did a pretty good job. You can see it's still visible, but it's much, much less. And then I gave this thing a full-on scrubbing in the sink upstairs, and you can take this stuff out. So like this is a separate piece than the front plastic, same with the IR, so you could clean in between them. So now it's much, much cleaner than it was. I mean, there's still wear, but it's cleaner. And you can see there's all that chewed up edges right there from where the person was trying to pry it open. But you know what? That doesn't look so bad, and I think this thing will look pretty good when it's all back together. I've been using the CD player, and it's not perfect. I think the audio problem is fixed when it comes to the static noise from the clock, but I think it's a little tired, and it never seems to have issues playing the CD, but I did have a few weird issues. So one of them was I was on the last track of this CD, track 13, which is in the 60-minute range. And at one point it would like play for a while, and then it would just sort of like jump back, and then like it would go up to like 2 minutes and 30 seconds and then go back to like 1 minute and 30 seconds. I just power cycled the player and then it was fine. And I'm wondering if that was because I maybe bumped the CD and that confused it a little bit. It's currently not playing, it's just on pause mode, but it's on track 13. And if I unpause it, let's, where's the pause button? Here it is. Oh yeah, you have to push play to resume, not pause again. Yeah, there we go, it's working. So the other thing I noticed is every once in a while, like I'll jump back to track 13, like start it over again. And for whatever reason, CD players always seem to struggle a little bit on the higher up tracks. It would take a while before it would start playing. And I'm just figuring the laser is just getting a little bit tired. I can't imagine it was like that when it was new, but I know some laser pickups, especially the Sony ones, they just kind of wear out over time and they kind of age out. And then I'm just going to wipe up this little bit of Windex I had there. And then you could just have some issues like that. I guess eventually it'll get so bad, I won't be able to play the CD properly at all. It will like start skipping around, and maybe then make some adjustments. But right now, let's start the music again. So there's track 12. Okay, maybe turn the volume up so you can hear it a little bit better. So that's track 12, track 13. There we go, it started. Started at 13 again, back to 11. It's not terrible. It goes like relatively quickly here. But I figure it's probably faster when it was new. Going to 13 seems like it's seeking around quite a bit. Starting the track again, it's fine, I guess. Let's go back to track 1. Just gotta speed the CD up. There's track 1 playing now. 2. See, 2 took a while to start. Back to 1, back to 2. There's 2. I assume it was faster when it was new, but I don't think it's in any state right now that's worth me fiddling around with and adjusting. I think it's fine as it is. I have noticed that all of the micro switches on the front, they work perfectly, so that's great because you can't really clean those anyways. I have to replace those. I took this cotton bud and I stuck some deoxit D100 on it. Here's D100, just a few drops of this, and I stuck it in the headphone jack, and you can see it kind of came out brown, and hopefully that's not scratchy anymore. So I think the next thing to do is I'm just going to pop out these connectors, because I am going to try to get that glue off the board, at least the stuff that's around the components like the diodes and things. I really do like the fact that these are connectors that you can unplug. Thank you very much, NEC, for that. That's pretty awesome. What's interesting actually is these wires that go to the transport, they're very soft and flexible compared to these wires. These are like PVC coated. I think these are silicone, and that probably will help them move around, since we know they move around as the transport moves back and forth on the disc. So we'll just get these all off. Now, one thing we cannot get off easily are these connections to the transformer. So that's kind of annoying. We'll get these screws out and we'll just take a look at what is going on the underside. Exactly. Oh, it looks like the whole back panel is covered with this little piece of plastic. Interesting. Okay, so with those screws out, so this is starting to become loose. So one thing about the construction of this, I think it hinges up. It does. It actually hinges. So these things here, these clips are actually hinges. That is really clever. And on the underside of the board, just like I thought, we have Sony chips. The CXD, CXA, those are giveaways for what these chips are. Ugh, we got more of that stupid glue there, even on this side of the board. Now the hinge design makes it easy to see the bottom side, but the reality is I need this board out of this unit because I gotta scrape this stupid glue out of here. So the Big Pen does help in removing this from these plastic clips. And I do have the cord out of the wall, by the way, just in case you're worried. There we go. And then I can flip this over. I'm going to put this mouse pad over the transport mechanism, and I'm going to start scraping away at this stupid glue. Incidentally, one thing I found that helps get the glue off is hot air. So I'm going to lower the temperature of this down to like 200 degrees or so and try to get this glue off. And this is just slow and tedious. Okay, I understand now why they put the circuit glue on these parts, because they bodged on an extra resistor on top of another one. And I guess that was just for some stability. Huh. The heat's working really well. So the question is, do I want to take these caps out or not? I think I'm going to take them out because there's a lot of glue around there. And there's some components that should be free of this stupid glue. So I'm going to draw numbers on these so I know which way they went in. 4, 5, 6, and 7. Ugh, this glue is horrible. Luckily, it doesn't look like anything like any of the caps have leaked so far that I've taken out. But this glue is absolutely horrible, and yeah, really the only way to get this off is to do this, take these caps off the board. Makes it hard to take the caps off as well, because they're literally glued on the board, but they come off. Okay, well, that's the disaster that's left behind, and the dark part, yep, is it absorbing liquid. Look at that poor diode. So, got to scrape all this off now. Wow, it's really not coming off very easily at all. I mean, the main thing is you want to get it away from the electronic components. Anything with a leg that it's going to eat away, like this diode here that I'm scraping away at. It's okay if it's in the middle of nowhere where there's no other part. But anywhere there's a jumper link or any kind of other component, it's got to be cleaned off. So this diode here needs to be free of all this crap. So we got to get this off of it. There it is, glue has been scraped off. There are definitely components that have a bit of corrosion on them, some of the diodes that are around here, but it's not too bad, and I think the corrosion should stop now that that gunk is off of there. Of course, before I get these caps back on, I should also get the glue off of these. As long as it's not touching the leads, I think it's okay, although I'm not positive, like maybe it gets underneath the seal and then can cause an issue. Now, as for the capacitor, they are made in Japan. I'm keeping these. These are good caps from the 80s, and I'm not replacing them with modern stuff. Nope. Of course, if there were signs of leakage, I would, but what you see there, that gunk, that is entirely this stupid glue. Now I'm going to spend a moment with my jank polishing bit here. I'm just going to polish some of the legs of the components that have a bit of green and crusty on them from the glue. All right, and I'm just going to spend a moment to use a little IPA here just to clean up the board. And some of the leads on a few of the components that had some corrosion on it have a little bit of exposed copper now. So I will paint them with some of the lacquer, the clear nail polish lacquer that I use on everything. Also, by the way, when you're getting this glue off, you have to be careful because, well, not be careful, but you have to watch out for the fact that it ends up underneath components like diodes and resistors, and you have to scrape it off of those. You've got to get it out from under them because obviously if it's underneath them, well, it's going to keep corroding away just sitting there because it's still hygroscopic, so it's absorbing water. So yeah, you really have to kind of watch out for that as well. Obviously this thing was working, so I think we caught this in time. So I don't think we have any issues long term. And now that I got the glue off, I think we should be in okay shape for long-term reliability of this thing, unless the laser dies, of course, which is totally possible. And I took a photograph of my capacitor placement, so I can just pop them right back in the board where they were. Of course, I'll just put a little bit of nail polish on the components with the exposed leads first, like this diode right there. And that resistor had a little bit of copper exposed. And that diode right there. That diode as well was corroded. There's a lead, a jumper link right there. That one up there wasn't corroded yet, so that one was fine. Okay, I think that was it. I forgot where those wires go. I can fix them afterwards. I'm just going to put a piece of tape on these caps to hold them into place so I can resolder them in. Okay, all the caps are back in the board, and I've also touched up the joints on these pin header things, because those can often cause issues. Now the question is, did I damage the board with the work I was just doing? Well, what needs to happen for sure is everything needs to be reconnected to the board. And don't let any jump cuts that I might do in this video fool you. It's a pain in the butt taking off that stupid circuit glue. It really is not easy, and the heat really does help, so I do recommend using the heat gun if you have one. Then we have a couple ground leads and also wire dresses. As for these wires, I don't know how they went. I'm just gonna leave them like that. Actually, I have a photograph. Yeah, it looks like the black one is dressed like I had it, except it tucked down there. Blue one looked like it was kind of like that around the back of that component. So the PCB has 2 extra fasteners besides this one to hold it in, but I won't bother with those yet because I think I need to make sure that this player still works after I brutalized it by taking those caps out and scraping all that junk out of there. But even though I did brutalize it, that was better than the ravages of the liquid corrosion brutalizing this thing over time. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, I'm turning this on. Okay, CD is spinning up. Find my audio cables in this disaster of a mess on my bench. We actually have a fault. So it was playing, it looked like it was playing, but on the front display, it had weird stuff displayed and it was dim. I guess we need to see if the audio is actually playing on this thing. The player's off. Did I misconnect anything? Let's just check all the connections are good. Seems like a power supply issue if the display is not working, but the rest of the player is. So, okay, let's turn this on again. Yeah, the display is dim. Well, the audio works. Let's skip the track here, go to 13. Okay, well, that's playing normally, as it should. Let me see if I can show you what's on screen here. I'm going to pause this and turn the volume down. Yeah, there's definitely something going on with the player now. I caused a fault with what I did there. It's hard to even see the screen, but it says 13, and well, that says 07 right here, which is the seconds. So I'm going to poke around on the board here. Did I put any caps in incorrectly? Oh, you know what? I could have put that one in backwards. I did. That cap's in backwards. Whoops. So, because I put a 1 there, you see it's just a 1 in the photo. Whoops. The rest of these I know are in right because the way the numbers are oriented, but that's in backwards. I'm gonna replace that cap now that I brutalized it by putting it in backwards. I'm glad I didn't actually let the magic smoke out. And what's interesting here is when I first powered it up, everything was fine on screen and it kind of disappeared. So I have a feeling that cap worked for a second and then it was reverse biased and it was like, oh no, I'm extremely unhappy with you for reverse biasing me. Okay, I clearly can't do that with this stuff connected. I have to unplug all of this again. Okay, I'm gonna replace that cap now. It's 50 volts, 220 microfarad. Okay, new cap is in. It's in the correct orientation. It is interesting how much smaller the caps are now. 50 volts, 220. That's exactly what I put in there. And yeah, you notice there's a size difference. We can pretty much assume that the 50 volt cap is for the vacuum fluorescent display specifically. There were probably people screaming at their screen saying, "Ah, you made a mistake and you put the cap in wrong." Poor guy. This was an Ichicon cap as well. And it was fine. The XS series, but yep, that was my bad. All right, so there we go. Let's see if this thing is going to work now. Yes, the cap or the screen is nice and bright. Oh, well, we have another interesting fault here. Fast forward scan doesn't seem to work. It's playing, but it's kind of skipping all over the place. How about going backwards? Backwards works just fine. How odd is that? It plays just fine, obviously. I let this play through the whole CD, but I wonder if we're having other issues now with this thing. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, okay. Okay, hold on a second. Maybe we have a bad connection there. Let's turn the power off. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put some deoxide in these sockets here, specifically the sockets that go to the transport. All right, here we go. Let's try that again. Okay, it's playing, so that's good. Fast forward. Nope, that's still having issues. Just the same. Very interesting. So it's definitely having tracking issues now. So this player, it's got issues. It's really got issues. And if I fast forward through track 2, this is fine. Oh, okay, well, it was fine, and then it starts kind of going faster. It has this acceleration for the fast forward and rewind. So it starts going slowly scanning, and then it goes faster and faster and faster. Backwards seems to have 0 issues, 0. So now I'm wondering if this is like a lubrication issue with the sled moving around, but it skips tracks just fine. Let's see if I touch these wires if it messes up now. Oh, it still does. Is that just... Okay, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm just turning the volume down. Is it just me poking? Okay, I think it's my finger. It's like the capacitance of my hand causing that issue. Because when I use the pen, it doesn't do it. Yeah, look. Whoa, yeah, it completely caused this. Watch, I'll turn the volume back up. See, when I touch this, it like cuts out entirely. Non-shielded wires, I guess. I don't want to make any adjustments to this stuff. I mean, I'm fine adjusting this clock over here, but anything to do with the laser? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, there's TG, FG. This one is FB, FB, EFB. Okay, so just for fun, I hooked the oscilloscope up to this one test point, and this isn't a very good scope for this because, well, it's pretty slow, the update rate, you can see. Although the time base, if I get the glare out of there, 500 microseconds per division. I don't know what that particular pattern is telling us. Let's hit the pause button and see what that change is, if anything. Nothing. The player is playing. Let's hit fast forward. I don't know. Don't know what this is trying to tell us. When I move the head around a lot, look, we see all sorts of waveforms come and go on there. Oh, this is interesting. So we're at on track 1 now. This looks a lot more smooth, this peak, than when we were on the upper track. Here, we're on track 14 here. And now it's playing. My assumption is like the activity we see on here has something to do with the sled moving around or the laser moving about or something like that. But it doesn't look nearly as good there as it did on track 1. Go back to track 1. It's moving right now. Still seeking. Now it's playing. Oh, you know what's funny is this is just playing. It's on track 6. And it just did that weird thing where it was at like 3 minutes and something and it jumped back to like 2 minutes and something. And I heard it seeking doing that. I almost feel like maybe the laser is having trouble moving. What I mean is like the actual big gears that move the laser assembly back and forth. Maybe I really need to take this whole thing out and take a look at those gears and just see if those are lubricated. Yeah, I'm going to do that, I think. I'm going to remove these fasteners, which I think go all the way down to the bottom of the player, and they will release this entire mechanism. The design is kind of cool. The 4th screw you can access through the open tray. Okay, there it is. Right, okay, so there definitely is lubrication on this, and still feels pretty sticky. This is obviously the motor that turns, it's a worm gear that turns that gear, that turns this rack, which moves the whole laser assembly. This is the eject mechanism that moves the tray in and out. Oh, by the way, the laser assembly, KSS-125A. And then it has a serial number, I guess, 20171-685. If I turn this like that, you can just make that out. I think that's a Sony laser, if I recall. Don't know if that's the one that constantly fails and has issues. I did a quick search for the KSS-152A. That's the actual part number, not what I said in the video just a second ago. And there are some on AliExpress. They're kind of expensive. This one being $40 shipped, and this one being a little bit over $30 shipped. Now, when you look up the KS-150A, they're way, way cheaper. And I think they're about $10 with shipping compared to the other one, which are much more expensive. Now, what's the difference, you ask? Well, I found a post on an audio forum. This is from like 2010, and it shows the KSS-150A. And apparently they're electrically identical, so the laser and the connections and everything is exactly the same. But the difference is this has this bearing pushed into the plastic, while the 152 does not. Looks like there might be another difference as well. So besides the fact that there's a hole without the bearing over by the blue knob, notice on the 150, it doesn't even have anything over there, because I think this one has a rack with a gear teeth over on this side where the white connector is. And notice this one just has a hole as well for one of the rods. Now, I really don't know anything about the construction of these. Is it possible to just take the laser module and this little circuit board off of one of these replacements, for instance, off of one of these 150s, and transfer that onto the plastic of the 152 that's on this player? If you happen to know those answers, definitely comment down below. I'd be very curious about that. There's a limit switch there. There's a limit switch here. There's a limit switch there. These two probably have to do with the tray. That one has to do with the laser assembly going back into the home position. But as I said, everything looks okay with these gears. I don't see anything broken. I don't see any missing teeth. Yeah, there's plenty of lubricant on all these parts. I think if there's any kind of issues, it's not to do with the lubrication. It's probably something to do with that laser diode just aging out. I'm going to use some compressed air to blow this out a little bit. I mean, one thing is, of course, the cigarette smoke could be inside the optics. Maybe that's also affecting this. Should I use a cotton bud to try to clean the head a little bit, the laser? Well, certainly nothing came off on there. It looks perfectly clean. Just gonna blow a little air in there very carefully. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm gonna do. All right, I think we're back together and we should be working. Okay, let's put a disc in. Put in this above and beyond disc. Okay, it did read the disc, but sometimes it feels like this was wobbling. You see how the disc was spinning, it was kind of wobbling. I assume that can't be right. See that? It's going back and forth. Okay, now it's not wobbling. And the disc started playing right away. Well, we read the table of contents. But when it's wobbling, it has more issues. Maybe that tape that I put on there is doing more harm than good. Okay, so off comes the tape. Let's put this back on, turning the screw backwards first. And then once it clicks, it goes into the existing threads. I don't create new ones. I won't over tighten that. I don't think it needs to be super tight. All right, let's see what that does. I mean, the disc is still playing fine. Let's eject and put it back in to see if we get the wobble. No wobble. And it reads the table of contents very quickly now. Interesting. Let's try that again. And I'll like move the disc, around a little bit in the tray here. Nice and smooth. Yeah, I think this tape was like causing that thing that sits on the disc to bind up a little bit. And maybe that was causing these weird playback issues and the fast forward issues. Let's go all the way to track 13. Okay, and fast forward. Nope. That is still very unstable. Let's go all the way to track 1 here. It got to track 1 quick. It's playing quickly. Fast forward. See if this is any better. No, same issues. Okay, so unrelated problem there. Unrelated. Okay, I think I've fiddled around with this player for long enough. I don't know enough about adjusting those other controls to even touch them. I'll have to just see if this player works by playing some CDs on it and see how it performs just listening to CDs through. I know the fast forward doesn't work, but no big deal. I don't really care about that, to be honest. But I guess I'm kind of concerned is that occasionally it does that weird thing where it was like jumping back, although maybe it was the wobbling of that clamp thing that seems to be fixed now that I just peeled the tape off entirely. You know what though? There's one more thing we need to test though. Does this read CDRs? Because if it doesn't, that is kind of bad actually, and I might need to find something newer than this and use that as my CD player. Believe it or not, I don't think I have any music CDs that are CDRs. I just have CD-ROMs. Like here's Windows XP, and I should be able to play this on here. I mean, there shouldn't be any audio, although it's such an old player, it might just play static. But let's see if it can actually read this CDR. This is a 52X CDR, that style it looks like, and let's see what happens. Spinning, there's a red LED right here that's just blinking. So I kind of feel, oh, it did read it. It says 1 track, 55 minutes and 41 seconds. I don't know if it could, I mean, if it read it, it just barely read it. If we hit play, I mean, it's a data CD, right? So that could be part of it. I was gonna find another one here. Oh, you know what? I think I do have a music CD upstairs. It's a DTS CD and it's on a CDR. I'm gonna go find those. Yeah, I just came back with my little CD booklet here and it's still sitting here. No time or anything on here. It's not really doing anything. It's just spinning. So it seems to be unhappy. So let's get that Windows XP CD out. So like here's Pink Floyd Wish You Were Here, but this is actually a DTS CD. So it's just CD audio, but this actually has DTS encoding. So you need a digital output on your CD player. But a CD player like this should just see it as a normal data CD, or audio CD, I mean. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's doing the same thing as it's doing with the XP CD. It's just sitting here with a 0 and a flashing red light there. So it pretty much confirms this thing does not support playing CDRs, which makes sense. It's from 1987. Yeah, this one's actually just spinning up and down. I assume it's going to give up eventually. I have another disc. This one's kind of a gold color. It's still just not playing. It just says 0. Let's try this one. Oh, that one read perfectly. Okay, I wouldn't say perfectly, but the table of contents came up pretty quickly. Okay, but it's not actually able to play it. The play LED's on, which is green. You see my fingernail, and the red one's on, and it just says 1. But I can skip ahead to different tracks. Like here's track 8. Oh, it's not even seeking. Oh, there it goes. It's seeking. Oh, it's playing track 8. I'm sure if I turn up the audio, it's going to be a whole bunch of noise. Yes, it is, just static, which is what, of course, what it is DTS audio. So this gold disc is working, but only on the higher tracks. Let's try a different disc. So this is same brand as that other one. It's like a GQ, but this one says 1 to 32x compatible. Yeah, this one's not reading at all, just like the other one. Oh, it did read the table of contents eventually. Now it says 10 tracks. Let's try playing it. I'm assuming this will not play, unless I skip to maybe one of the higher tracks. Interesting that this one was able to read table of contents. I have one more disc here. It's a different brand again. I was going to try this in a second. It's still trying to seek to track 9. Unsuccessfully. Yeah, I don't think that's going to actually play. So let's abort. Okay, let's try this other brand here. Whoa, red table of contents immediately on this one. But normally it would just come to an abrupt stop, and it's not. So I'd say that this is, again, not working. I hit play. Oh, it's playing track 1. Very interesting. But I hit track 2, and it's not really seeking to track 2 here. That's not working. What's going on with this? It seems to... Uh-oh. Oh, we have a new problem with the limit switch on the tray now. Oh, that's absolutely hilarious. So the CD I just put in is a full MP3 CD, and it does say 1 track, 79 minutes and 23 seconds. So that worked. But that's so funny. The limit switch is now... I'm not pushing the button to close it. Yep. I think the limit switch for the tray open is not working now. Freaking hilarious. Well, what I want to show is this cheap CD player has no trouble playing these CDs because this thing obviously is new enough to support these types of discs. There you go. It's playing perfectly here. Track 2, 3. So these CDRs work. That was this one here. Let's try this great quality disc. But I found that these great quality ones are just fine. Turn off the ESP. Yep, see? Plays fine. So there's nothing wrong with these discs. It's just that this player is not happy with CDRs, which is typical for old players. So obviously this thing has a fault now. I'm just going to turn it off while it's open. The limit switch is not working. It means I got to take it apart again and clean those limit switches. And I should have done it before because I just should have realized that this was going to be a problem. And I didn't, like a doofus. So this is one of the limit switches right there for the tray being closed. And a good way to clean these is you just get a little piece of paper, put a little alcohol on it, and slide the paper down into the switch. The paper has enough abrasion to it that helps clean the switch. Well, that one's not dirty at all, actually. Yeah, if it's really bad, it leaves like a streak on there. Or how do I get to the other one? The one that's actually the problem. The switch is just down below this area, but how do I get this tray out? All right, well, I couldn't figure out how to get the tray out. It's kind of a complicated mechanism. There's metal tracks underneath it. This is not just a plastic tray like a CD-ROM drive. What I was able to do is I could flip the mechanism over and I put some of the Deoxit D100 into the switch. It looks like it's a 2-position switch. I think it's so it can sense when it opens, and it can also sense when you push the tray closed. So if you push it a little bit, notice it doesn't do anything, and then all of a sudden it will close itself. I think that's the part that was having an issue, and the Deoxit did fix it. Yeah, the switch on the bottom side is all glued in, but I was able to get the Deoxit D100 into there, and this stuff is amazing. It completely does a great job. And look, now it doesn't have an issue. Okay, while I was there, I did clean that micro switch, and I cleaned the one underneath the CD sled as well. Okay, this thing appears to be working fine now. It stays open. I'm gonna put the front panel on. All right, the CD player is all back together, and it has a very strange fault. So I put this up in the living room, hooked up some speakers, and I've had it playing CDs on repeat, the entire disc. And I had a couple other CDs in there, no issues. But for some reason, this Above and Beyond CD has this weird issue when it gets to about 2 minutes and 30 seconds or so, it'll jump all the way back to, well, wait, now it's not gonna do it. Are you kidding me? Oh, there we go, it just did it. Jumps back to like 1:50, and it doesn't always skip on the exact same spot, but it just continually does that. But the rest of the CD plays perfectly, which is so strange to me. And I had, for instance, this Pump Up the Jam Technotronic in here, and this was playing on repeat perfectly. And there's some scratches in this disc, and that had no issues. And then this NEC CD, which also has some scratches, played perfectly, looping over and over again. And this has been playing all day. It is now 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I think I started playing CDs on this. Well, I had some playing last night, but then I also started it up this morning around 9 and just left it playing all day. Oh, there we go. Did you see it just jumped again? I don't get it. And it's only on this track, the last track. And when it does the jump, it just goes, it doesn't even make any noises, like it's having trouble reading the disc. Nothing weird happened. It just jumps back to that spot. Otherwise, the player honestly has been working perfectly. These other discs show no faults whatsoever. They play perfectly. And let's talk about the features of this player a little bit. So if we stop the player, one interesting thing about it is if you shut the power off and there's a disc in the player, when you turn the power on, it will read the disc and it will auto start the playback. So it takes a moment, and there it is, now it's playing. Now if we stop the CD and we eject it, and you put the CD in normally, it will not auto start the playback when you close the player with the open close button. It just shows the table of contents for a second, which you saw, and then it just shows a 1, which is kind of lame, to be honest. And it doesn't even appear that there's a way to get back to the table of contents. There's a time button right here, which changes between elapsed and remaining, but that only does that while the disc is actually playing. Now, one thing about that though is, so it's showing the elapsed time of the track we're on. If we switch to remaining, what the heck is going on? Well, that's something new that I haven't seen. Is it playing any music? Let's turn the audio up. No, it's not even playing any audio. It's like it's on a shuffle mode or something. Let me zoom in on that. That's the first time I've seen that particular fault. Okay, well, let's get the CD out of there, and I assume if we hit play, it'll start playing automatically. Don't understand. That's the first time I've seen that particular fault. So it is playing, and now it's showing the remaining time. And the interesting thing is that will stay just like that the entire playback of the entire disc. It will just show you all the way down to 0. So it just remembers the last setting you had it on. Again, I've never seen that weird thing where the track info was just randomizing like that. I already discussed in the previous part of the video that the fast forward and rewind does have audio while it's searching, but the fast forward doesn't work properly. If I hold it down, well, it's actually working. Wow, this is interesting. Let's turn the sound back on so I can hear it. And I fast forward. Well, I'll be. That is now fine. Very interesting. And then going backwards works as well, and there is sound. So that's nice. Let's swap to a different CD. I just want to see if, well, maybe just having this having been played for hours and hours has suddenly fixed the tracking issue that was causing this. Maybe the gears were just a little bit gummed up and now they're better. Okay, so fast forward. No. Yes. It's stumbling a little bit because you can see how it sort of stutters. It stops for a second. Let's try a higher track. Might just be track 1 that's working fine just because the disc is spinning more quickly. Oh yeah, okay. This is working but struggling. So see how it's jumping in big gaps and stuff there? So that's fast forward. Rewind though just generally works fine no matter what track you're on. Okay, other features on this player, there's a repeat button, but when you push that, it just turns on an LED that says repeat and it repeats the entire disc. There is no track repeat feature on this particular player. What there is, if we hit play, let's start this again, is there's an A-B repeat, which is you push it once, you go to that next time period, push it again, and it will just repeat playback that entire thing. I pushed it 2 times very quickly, so it was just trying to play like a 2-second thing there, and it looks like it has died. So we'll turn off repeat. Can we get this to work anymore? I don't think it's actually working. So the minus sign there is just flashing, although, is this in pause mode? No, when you hit pause, it flashes the play LED, hit play. So the player is crashed or something. Oh, that's working. Okay, so anyways, weird thing about pause, you push pause, the green LED flashes, and you can't resume by pushing pause again, you have to hit play. So that's a little different than I'm used to. The next feature is the intro button, so we'll just stop this and hit intro. What that does is plays like 5 seconds from each track on the disc, something like that. Let me turn the volume down, we don't want any copyright strikes. So yeah, it plays, oh, it's having issues, I think. Let's hear what it's doing. Yeah, we're skipping. Just when I said the player is working fine, it's not working fine all of a sudden. So yeah, I think this player still has some issues. Let's see if power cycling it helped at all. Well, that did not help at all. It's very broken. Oh, that's super funny. Let's just see the condition of this disc. Well, it may not be easy to see, but there are some big old scratches, but they're further out. So when it starts playing, it's in the inside here. And, oh, that's just smudge. I just wiped the disc off on my shirt. Let's see if that made a difference. Probably not. It's probably the player is broken. Just when I said this thing's working great, proves me wrong. Oh, wiping the CD on my shirt made it work. Okay, well, back to what we were talking about. Let me turn the volume back down. We don't need any copyright strikes. Hit play. Once it starts to play, you get to wherever you want to start. Let's say you push the A button. Now the AB light is flashing. You wait a moment for it to play, or you even like skip a track or something like that. And we push this button again, and what it will do is it will jump back to exactly where we first pushed the A button, which was around 2 seconds. And then it will, when it gets to that next mark, it will just jump back. So that would be the way you would play a track over and over again, is you just start the track, push the A button, then go to the end of the track, and then push the A button again, and then it will just repeat that track. To get it off, you can't push the AB button again, or to turn it off, you have to push the repeat button, and now that's off. The intro mode, as I said, that just plays the first 5 seconds, I think, from each track. And I don't know why anyone would ever use that feature. That was sort of common on these types of players at this point in time, and I don't understand why. It probably plays maybe 10 seconds. Let's see what it does. There's 10. Yeah, okay, first 10 seconds, then it jumps to the next track. The next feature is auto space and turns on a green or a red LED, and you might be wondering, what the heck does that do? Well, what that does, if we skip to track 3, for instance, if it can. Oh yeah, there we go, okay, and we're gonna go backwards here. We'll go back to the track 2. So it will automatically add several seconds of space between each track. And the reason why you would want to do that is some CDs had continuous playback, like there was no gap between songs. And if you wanted to copy a CD onto tape and your cassette player had that auto track skip or rewind where it would look for silence in between tracks, you want to add that space back in, and that's the auto space feature. The last feature this has is a memory function. And the way this works is you pick a track, say track 6, and we're not playing right now, and you hit the memory button. And now it says memory number 1. And then we go, say, to track 3 and push memory again, and now there's a 2. And we can go to track 5, memory, and now it says 3. And in track 6 again, we hit memory. Now when we hit play, what it's going to do is it will play the tracks in the order we've saved them in the memory. So it was track 6, and then what, 3, 4, and 6, I think? So we hit, there it is, memory 2, track 3, memory 5, or memory 3 is track 5, and then it will have track 6 again. And I think at the end of this track, well, we can't skip forward anymore. This, instead of using the normal table of contents, only uses our memory. Now I noticed you hit stop, the memory light is still on, and the button says stop/clear. This is for that function specifically. You push it again once you're stopped and it turns off the memory, and now we'll just go back to using the standard table of contents. And we can see how many tracks there are by just pushing the track forward and backwards button, even though it's in stop mode. So we know that there's 14 tracks on this disc, but what we can't see is there's no way to see how much time there is on each track, which is a little bit of an oversight on NEC's part, if you ask me. That was the whole point of CD. And we should be able to see pretty quickly and easily how much time the entire disk is. And even worse, if you're using this memory function, like say you wanted to try to fit one of these CDs onto a cassette, well, for instance, if you were trying to fit 45 minutes onto one side of a 90-minute tape, while you're doing that memory function, it'd be nice for it to tell you how much time you've added up with the current tracks you've picked. But this player seems to be too basic and not allow that. I know later CD players had that capability where the memory function would actually show you the cumulative time as you add tracks to it so you could fit onto a cassette. Or some of them had an auto fit function where you would tell it, I have a 60-minute tape, and it would split the CD into 30-minute chunks, and it would do it obviously with a little bit of a gap at the end, but it would rearrange the track so it would best fit onto 30-minute sides. You know, say you had a CD that was under 60 minutes, that is, it would fit all those tracks on as best as possible to minimize the amount of silence you would have at the end of a track, and so you wouldn't have to split a track between two sides. And that's all there really is to this thing. It seems to be a nicely built CD player. The tray is very sturdy. It generally worked fine. Obviously, it's a bit sensitive to dirt on the discs, I guess, because when I wiped the NEC CD, it started playing. It's working well. Just the weird oddities are track 13 on the Above and Beyond CD here, where it will do that weird jumpy thing. And I'm quite sure this CD works perfectly on other CD players. This is specific to this player, and my assumption is the laser on this thing is dying, or it's just out of calibration. I don't know how to adjust all those potentiometers on the main board. Here we go. Is it going to jump back? Who knows? It jumped back to 203. So it jumps back to random points. Odd is earlier I had this on full disc repeat, and this disc was repeating. It was playing all the way through and repeating. So it's not every time that it does this weird jumping thing. Anyhow, it might be possible with all those gain and tracking and adjustments on the main board that we could fix this problem. If anyone knows of a good guide that I could try to read on maybe how to look at those test points on this and adjust them, I have an analog scope I can use for this instead of trying to buy one of those expensive lasers from AliExpress that we have no idea if they're any good or not, or trying to retrofit the cheap $10 one into this player to maybe bring it back to full operation. So I think that's going to be it for this video on this CD player, the NEC CD-510. Bunch of Sony parts, a bunch of NEC parts, Burr Brown audio DAC inside, and a very cool 80s aesthetic. Even though it's not the most sophisticated player, it's kind of simplistic, I still like it, and I think it looks really quite cool on the shelf. And it's nice that it works, even though it's got its little quirks that it almost certainly wouldn't have had when it was new. So I hope you enjoyed the little side quest of mine into the world of audio CD players from the 1980s. And it still does amaze me that this thing is almost 40 years old. In a few years, it'll be 40 years old, and it still works. Almost works perfectly, except for these strange little glitches like it just did right there. So that's it. Thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't. Huge thanks to my supporters. Names are going up the side of the screen. And I guess that's going to be that. Subscribe, YouTube, blah, 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 junk, junk, junk. And stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.